So by 1870 they started to get the materials here over that long process right there. So like I said, there's no roads to bring the materials here. How did they have to get it here? They had to bring it here by ship. So there wasn't a guiding light on this shoreline right here. So these ships were coming across the Diamond Shoals. They were coming across the Labrador Current. They were coming up through the Gulf Stream. They were battling the currents and the weather conditions off of this shoreline, and they were battling the actual shoals off of there to get the materials here itself. So ironically enough, one of the barges containing about 100,000 bricks that was coming here to build the structure that was supposed to protect the barge actually ran aground and dropped 100,000 bricks into the middle of the ocean out there. So you can see, I mean, they had to build wharves over the dune line here just to bring the bricks and the materials here to construct the lighthouse. So it was just extraordinarily difficult just to get the materials here in the first place to build the lighthouse. Then as they constructed, or began to construct the lighthouse, you guys can imagine, it was probably pretty buggy down here. Who's been bitten by a mosquito since they've been down here on Cape Hatteras? It happens just about every single day, a million times a day. They're all over the place. And you can imagine in 1870 there were way more mosquitoes down here than there are nowadays. And you couldn't go to the grocery store, buy that little can of stuff, spray it all up and down your clothing, and combat any types of bugs or mosquitoes down here whatsoever. And you could just imagine how thick they were. They carried disease, they were all over you, they would cover your back when you stepped out your door, they would bite you, they would annoy you, and they were really, really difficult to deal with down here. In addition to that, you had the heat down here. It gets pretty hot down here sometimes. You had the humidity down here. Yesterday was a great example during the day of the humidity down here. So it was really humid, it was really hot. You have the winds down here. Today's a really good example of the changing winds down here. Gusts can get, geez, who knows, hurricanes coming, you get 100-mile-an-hour gusts down here, and winds, and constantly changing weather conditions and weather patterns and storms. So you had all these factors combined, the mosquitoes, the wind, the heat, the humidity, all of these things combined made it even more difficult to construct a lighthouse down here. So one thing they did to combat that was they actually hired a lot of the local islanders to construct the lighthouse itself. So the local islanders had been living down here their whole entire lives. They were kind of old, salty kind of fellows. They didn't know it was hot down here. They didn't know there was a lot of mosquitoes down here. That's just the way it was. That was what they were used to. So they hired these local islanders who were used to the conditions and were actually much, much more effective in building and constructing the lighthouse itself. So by 1870, they constructed a lighthouse that contained about 1 million bricks that you see behind you today. It still stands today. It still doesn't have a single crack in the lighthouse itself. It's almost 140 years old, believe it or not. They constructed the lighthouse absolutely 100% by hand and made a structure that is extremely, extremely solid. So by 1870, we had the tallest lighthouse in North America, which it still is, that sat here on Cape Hatteras. You could see it for about 20 miles off the shoreline here, and you could navigate around the 15-mile-long Diamond Shoals off the point there. So it was a really, really effective lighthouse and really did an incredible job. By 1873, they decided they were going to paint the lighthouse, so they painted the barbershop pattern that you see on here today, which was actually a mistake. They were supposed to have a diamond-shaped pattern to signify the Diamond Shoals down here, but that actually got put on the Cape Lookout Lighthouse, and we got the barbershop pattern up here. So it actually got reversed a little bit. But by 1873, you had a very effective day marking on here as well. So the lighthouse did a really good job. There's no doubt about it. By 1934, what do you guys think started to happen again? Erosion, a natural process in these barrier islands down here, started to take its toll again. The ocean started to get closer and closer day by day to the lighthouse itself and was actually threatening the safety of the lighthouse and the people who occupied it on a daily basis. So by 1934, it was actually considered that the lighthouse might need to be decommissioned. That was at the same time that the lighthouse was actually electrified as well. So they no longer burned kerosene in the lens, but they actually had electricity in 1934. Right after that innovation, though, by 1936, they decided that they had to shut down the lighthouse. From 1936 to 1950 is the only time that the lens on this Cape Hatteras Lighthouse hasn't burned since 1870. They decommissioned the light from 1936 to 1950 due to the ongoing, constant process of beach erosion down here on these barrier islands down here. But like I said, off the coastline here, we have the Labrador Current, we've got the Gulf Stream, we've got the Diamond Shoals, and we've got the graveyard of the Atlantic right out here. So there's no way that we can't have a guiding light along this shoreline right here. So what they did was they actually built this ugly steel tower right here. This is called the Buxton Woods Steel Tower. They built this tower to supplement and to replace the lighthouse from 1936 until 1950.